All right, so welcome to our workshop. Just a heads up, we are recording, so if you don't want to show your face or your name or anything, just keep that in mind because we are recording now. Welcome everyone, and we'll get started. So today we will be talking about Git and GitKraken, and hopefully by the end of the workshop, you'll have walked away with some new knowledge. I am Allison. I am the co-president at nwPlus this year. My lovely other co-president, Anne, is in the call, along with many other nwPlus members today. I'm in 5th year UBC Computer Science, and also Julio, who will introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Julio. I'm the internal dev director at nwPlus. I currently go to UBC, and I'm in my last year in interdisciplinary studies.
Nice. So before we get started, everyone's seen the slide already, but make sure you join us on Slack, and that's where our questions will be answered. Make sure your Zoom name matches your Slack name in case that you need help in a breakout room. We'll be able to find you on Zoom and on Slack together. If you can, try to join Zoom with your computer and not your mobile device, because we will be sharing multiple screens. So one for slides and then one for GitKraken. But this is, a preference. And if you're able to, please add your operating system to your Slack name. So like if you have a Mac, put in a bracket M, P for PC, and then L for Linux. Yeah, so this will help us find the correct TA to help you out. Cool. So first off, why are we here? A lot of us have had to collaborate on a code project before and we weren't sure how to go about it, or some of us have never used Git or GitHub before and we don't know where to start. Both are pretty valid. And some of us have used Git or GitHub before and felt like it was a really tricky process. I can definitely relate to this. It's definitely not an easy process to just pick up and run with. So today we'll be working with Git. You'll learn about version control and the different kinds. You'll learn about how to use GitKraken, which is a graphical user interface or a GUI. For Git. We'll learn under the hood how GitKraken works with the command line. So you'll learn about Git commands with command line, but you won't actually be working with the command line today. You'll just learn about it. And then we'll also be talking about GitHub, which is a hosting service for Git and code. Okay, so that was a lot of terminology. Here's how we'll do it. So first we'll do an intro to discuss some terminology to warm up. Then we'll set up a Git profile intro by creating a new repository. Now, some of you might already have one, and in that case, you can just follow along. But that's the main thing that we'll be working on today. You'll learn how to collaborate on a repository using GitKraken, and you'll learn what Git commands are and how they're being run under the hood when you're using a graphical user interface such as GitKraken. Cool. All right, first, what's Git and version control? So before we start talking about version control, here are some ways that you can share and collaborate on your code very horribly. So I've done some of these before in the past, and I'm sure some of you have as well. So coding in a Google Doc together, it's shared, right? Collaborative. I've sent zip files in Facebook Messenger before. I'm sure a lot of us have done that. Some more outrageous ones are like text snippets over text. You can stream your code to someone else and you can manually try to match your versions up. And the last one's basically a joke, but there are a bunch of ways to collaborate on your code, and we'll talk about Git today. So Git is a version control system, and there are many, okay? It's one of the many that helps you collaborate on projects with others, and there are two main features that help you achieve this. So first feature that's really important is you're able to log a change in a very searchable way. So instead of having a file, resume v1, resume v2, resume v3, instead of doing that, you have one version which is kind of iterated over and over. And you just kind of add lines to it or take away lines from it. And the second great feature about Git as a version control system is that many collaborators, they can work in parallel, and then you can merge your changes together automatically. So in this diagram here, you'll see someone has added a line to this file, and it comes back down. And then the other file, at the same time, someone in parallel has deleted a couple of lines in the red here. And overall, when they merge together again, you'll see that we have our original gray line up top, we have 2 deleted lines, and then a new added green line. So people are working collaboratively in parallel. So that's Git. You'll hear a lot of key terms today. Here's a couple terms for you right now. So a Git commit is a snapshot of code at a point in time. So in the case of our diagram back here, it was one of these files. It is a snapshot of a code at a point in time. And a branch is to create a copy of the project inside of the project itself. So in this diagram here, someone's created a branch to add a new line up top, and then someone's created a branch to delete 2 lines down here at the bottom. Yeah, a lot of information, I know. So first, before we get started, you should have Git installed on our pre-workshop checklist. So if you know how to use command line, you can check by typing git -- version. And here's how to download it if you don't already have it installed. If you have a Mac, use the homebrew method. Yeah, so we'll operate under the assumption that you already have Git installed. And don't worry, if you don't, and if you run into issues, we have Slack, and we also will be recording the workshop, so you'll be able to catch up later as well. Cool. All right, so next, what is GitHub? So GitHub is a code hosting platform for version control and collaboration. So similar to how YouTube is a video hosting platform, Git hosts your code. And it allows you and others to work together on these projects from anywhere. And some other hosting platforms you might have seen before, worked at maybe at Co-op or something. Bitbucket is a very big competitor to GitHub. GitLab and Azure, other really popular ones as well. So next checkpoint is to make sure you have a GitHub account. This is also another step in our checklist. So we'll operate under the assumption that you already have one, but if you don't, it's a fairly quick and simple process. Cool. Briefly, we'll talk about what command line is, but we won't be doing much work in command line today. You can use command line to interact with anything on your computer, basically, but in terms of Git and GitHub, developers will use the command line as a text interface to give commands to your computer's operating system to run. So if you have a Mac, you can open terminal. If you have a PC, you can open cmd. And if you have a Linux machine, you basically know what you're doing, so we won't go into detail there. If you see these on our slides, so CLI, command line interface, and then a command, this is just to show you what a command would look like. You don't actually have to run it, it's for your reference. Cool, okay. Last couple of items to go over before we get started in the actual code part. What's GitKraken? So Git is very, very powerful, but sometimes you'll have to memorize a lot of commands, and it's very hard to visualize how Git works if you're a beginner. So we'll be introducing today the GitKraken graphical user interface that kind of provides you a picture, a graph of the same workflow in Git, but you will be able to click and drag and stuff, hit buttons instead of typing the commands. So another item, and I guess the main item for today, is you should make sure you have GitKraken installed, and if you don't, you can download it for free from their website. So just for now, we've got a lot of information there. Does anyone have any questions? You can feel free to unmute, or we will be checking Slack as well. Cool, I mean, sounds good. Doesn't look like we have any questions here right now. Okay, so first step, we're gonna get started, okay? First, we wanna make sure that GitKraken is authorized to work with your GitHub account. So you're going to open your preferences in GitKraken. So if you're on Mac, it would be GitKraken preferences, very similar if you are on PC. Then you will go into authentication and then GitHub and then connect to GitHub. I believe, Julio, can you unmute and let me know, are you able to show this step?
Yeah, sure. I can show something like it.
Okay,
I'm just
cool.
gonna take over now.
All right.
Oop. Cool. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see the wow.
Okay, so and most of you, when you first open GitKraken, this will be the first screen you see. Essentially, GitKraken requires you to have an account. You can use a GitKraken account that you can make yourself. I prefer to use GitHub, and by using a GitHub account to log into GitKraken, this will automatically link your GitKraken with your GitHub account. So I'll just quickly show myself doing that. I'm just gonna open this up. If you're not logged into GitHub, it'll ask you to log in, but I'm already logged into GitHub, so it just brings me straight to this page. Then we're gonna click continue. And cool. If we move back to GitKraken, we'll see that we are now logged in. If you, however, have already logged into GitKraken using a GitKraken account, to authenticate with GitHub, we go over to Preferences, Integrations, and you can click on the Connect button over here. And the process will be exactly the same as I just described. It'll bring you over to GitHub, you log in, it'll authorize you, and then you're good to go. Allison, do you want to take over again?
Yeah. Cool. So we'll give everyone like another 10 seconds, 20 seconds to do that. That should be pretty straightforward. And drop a screenshot or drop a question into Slack if you need to. And in that time, I will paste the links again. All right, so we'll keep going. Today, we're going to create a repo for your GitHub profile README. So this is a special feature for GitHub. If you already have this, you might already have this. You'll just be able to follow along today, but a very, very simple repository. So a repository is your project folder that's holding code. You have a local repository, a local repo that lives on your computer that usually lives in the form of like a folder or something. And then the remote repository lives on GitHub or another hosting system. So in this case, it is going to be on GitHub. When we finish creating this repository, it is going to become this README here, this introduction basically on your GitHub page. Yeah. So, you know, when an employer is looking at your GitHub, you'll be able to give them, you know, a quick spiel about yourself. Cool. So first steps first, we're going to make that repository on GitHub. So make sure you're signed into GitHub. We're going to let you sign in. You're going to go to the top right corner, the plus sign, and then you're going to hit new repository. I'm going to run through all of the steps here, and then Julio will share his screen and he will walk us through this process step by step. So I'm just going to run through it first. You're going to make your new repository. The special repository comes from your new repository having the same name as your GitHub account. So this person's account is Octocat, and so their repository's name is Octocat. A couple more steps there. So you want to make sure that the repo is public, and you want to initialize the repository with a README. So a README is a simple text file that kind of accompanies the repository. Once you're done that, you're going to hit the green button that says create repository down here. I guess, sorry, the Google bar is kind of hiding that for me. And then after you create the repository, you'll be brought to the repository screen on GitHub, and then you'll be able to copy the HTTPS URL for your repository. And then we'll move into next steps after, okay? So steps again are gonna be make a new repository, name it after yourself. It's going to be public and add a README. Then we're going to copy the URL. All right, go ahead, Julio.
Alrighty, I'm taking over. Cool. All right, so we're back to my GitKraken. I'm going to quickly open up Firefox. I was looking up some homebrew stuff to answer some comments, but let's move over to GitHub now. So here's my GitHub. Sorry, it looks this way. Let me just turn this off. There you go. This is what yours sort of look like. You might not have all the same things as me, but what you should have if you're logged in is this little plus button in the top right. That's what we actually care about. So we're going to click on the little plus button and we're going to click on new repository. So just to repeat, little plus button in the top right. Just let me zoom in a bit. Right next to your profile picture, right here. Cool. So once we click on the new repository button, it'll bring us to this page right here. So like Allison said, we're going to be using this Easter egg feature of GitHub. And in order to do that, we're going to have to name our repository the same thing as the name of our GitHub account. So to see that, we can actually see our GitHub account is right here on the left, and that's the name of my GitHub account, Chufi. So I'm going to call my repository Chufi. If you've done this right, you should see this green message here telling you that you've found the Easter egg, the special repository. I'm just going to give you guys a second to make sure you caught up to that. Cool. For these settings, we're going to leave it public. Essentially, this means that anyone can look at this, but that's what we want since this will be on your public profile. And we're going to click on this Add a README button. Essentially, what this does is it'll already put a README into our repository, so we don't have to do it ourselves. In Git terms, README is the first thing that someone will look at when they're looking at your code. So it's a very important file, and usually you will write some things like this is how you run the code, or this is what the code does, or just a quick explanation of why you made this repository. So just keep that in mind when you're ever committing code to GitHub, that if it has a README, it'll be much easier for people to understand what's going on. Okay, so once you've once you've added the repository name, that is the same as your GitHub account name, and once you've clicked Add a README, it's time to click the green Create a Repository button. So I'm just going to quickly create that. Ta-da! Here we have our repository. Like I mentioned before, what's inside the README actually shows up first on your GitHub repository. So even though we're not looking at the README file right now, we can see what's inside the README file, and it shows up here for anyone to see. Now, in order to download our new repository that we've just created on GitHub, we're going to move over to this little green icon. Now, it might not look like this for you depending on how zoomed in you are. I'm just going to quickly zoom out my screen so that you can see how else it might look. Oh, never mind. I guess it always looks like that. Never mind. So you should see a little green arrow on the side. Once you click on it, there are a bunch of different options here, but we're just going to make sure that HTTPS here is selected. So we have to make sure that there's a red line under here. And then we're going to click on this little icon here that'll copy this link into our clipboard. You can also just select it and copy it depending on whatever you prefer. So,
All right, I will steal the share screen back.
Go for it.
All right. Cool. So next steps, we'll do this similar pattern. So I'm going to run through all the steps again, and then Julia will share a screen to show you the steps again. But now we're going to clone the repo. So Julia earlier mentioned downloading the code. That's essentially what we are doing. In GitKraken, we're going to select clone a repo. So it's just a button. And then you're going to paste in the URL that you copied from GitHub. In the section where it says where to clone to, so where you want to download this code to. Do you want to download it to your desktop, to your documents? You can save it wherever, just make sure you remember where you saved it because that'll come important later. Yeah, so under the hood, essentially what we're doing here in commands is we're changing our directory, or we're kind of getting to the folder that we want to download our code to. And then we want to run this command called git clone, and then you give it the URL that we copied earlier. So that's actually what's happening under the hood when we hit this clone the repo button. We're going to that directory, we're going to clone it with that URL. So you don't have to actually do these. This is just for your information. And so a reminder from earlier, a repository is your project folder that's holding the code. Cool. And then after you cloned it properly, at the top of the screen, you should see a bar, and it should say successfully cloned your repo, whatever it's named. And then you hit open now. And then we'll get to see some really cool features. So I'll let Julia do that. where'd he go?
Okie dokie. I'm taking
Hi.
over. Sorry, it took me a second. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, we're back where we left off. Here we are with our repo on GitHub. And again, make sure that you have HTTPS selected. Then we're going to copy this link. Now we're going to go over to our GitKraken. And we're going to, if you were in the preferences page, make sure to click exit preferences up top. If not, that's fine too. And we're going to open a repo. So you
Hang on,
should see
clone.
this, or sorry, clone a repo. You should see the screen right here, but if you don't, you can access this by clicking on the folder here and clicking on the clone icon. But for now, I'll just do it through here. So it'll open up this page. There's a lot of different options here, and it does integrate well with a lot of different services. But today we're just going to be pretending like we don't have any services integrated, and we're just going to do it the old-fashioned way. So I'm going to drop it into this folder here. You can select which folder you want to clone to. You can clone to your desktop, your documents, wherever you feel like is a good place to put it. Then I'm going to paste the link. As you can see, as soon as you paste the link to your repo, GitKraken generates the full path to that. So mine would be on Windows in my users folder, under my own folder, and then under the folder name of the repo, which in this case is the name of my GitHub account. Just so that I don't leave anybody behind, I'm just going to quickly repeat that. Choose the folder to put your repo in, paste the URL to your repo, and here will be the path of the actual repo on your computer where it will be downloaded to. Cool. So once we've got this part finished, we're going to click on the clone the repo button, and GitKraken will do some of its magic, as you can see at the bottom left. And now we'll see this icon up here, or this text. So successfully cloned repo Chufi, which is the name of my GitHub account, and open now. So we're going to select open now because we want to actually look at it. And this shows us the main GitKraken interface, which I think Allison will start to explain to you guys now.
Cool. Let me grab the screen share. All right, so now we're going to explore GitKraken. So there are many, many awesome features in GitKraken, and they all correspond to parts of the Git workflow. Some of them are very simple, and then some of them are really great add-on features that GitKraken has made for us. So we'll just start with the basics today. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the name of the project you're working on. So in your case, it's whatever name you named it. And here's a typo, but the name of the branch you have checked out would be main or master. So it depends on your GitHub account. Recently, they've changed the default name to main, but it also could be master depending on your account. So that's just like the main branch that the repository is working off of. And as a refresher, a branch is a parallel copy of a repository. So it's inside the repository. You are making a branch, a copy of the code that you're going to be working on. And we'll keep going. So at the top of GitKraken in the center, you'll also see a couple buttons like push and pull. So earlier we mentioned something called remote and local. So local means stuff that's on your own computer, and remote is stuff that is hosted on the internet. So in this case, GitHub. To pull something, you're going to be pulling to bring changes down to your local environment. So that means if someone has made changes to the project that they've uploaded online, you want to pull so you can grab their changes and bring that to your machine. Similarly, if you made changes on your machine, you've made your local changes and you want to be able to share that, upload that so that someone else can see it on the internet, in the case of GitHub, you will want to push. So you'll push your changes to the remote. Remote, like we said before, is the repository on GitHub or other platforms that your local repository on your computer is associated with. We've got some more terminology for everyone. There are more options such as branch. So we talked about branches earlier. If you hit branch, you'll create a copy of the project inside the project itself. It allows you to make changes and test them, and you don't have to finalize them. So they're your own copy until you're satisfied, and then we'll talk about next steps after. These two are stash and pop. So we won't actually go into detail about stash and pop today. is essentially like just saving a draft version of your work that you aren't ready to commit to yet, but you want to switch to a different branch. You want to go to a different version of code, and you can't bring your changes with you. So you're going to stash it onto a stack. And to bring those changes back to your branch that you're working on, to bring that draft back to yourself, you would hit pop. So you would take that your last stash and apply it to your changes. It's a lot of words, I know. We won't go into detail about stash and pop today, but there are more resources at the end that you can check out if you're interested. Okay, a couple more. So we talked about local and remote. On the left-hand side of your window, you'll see your branches and pull requests. So branches, like we said before, are copies of your code. Pull requests, we won't go into detail about them today, but essentially they are, if you want to take your branch and you want to submit it, you want to combine it with the main branch of what everyone else is working on, you can submit a pull request saying that, hey, like I actually think these changes would be good to combine together onto the main version. And I want you guys to review my changes, my work. And if everyone agrees, if you get enough reviews, then it gets approved and then you'll get to combine your changes or merging. So you might have heard that before too. So on the left side of the window, you'll see your local branches. So in this case, they have a master branch. The remote branches, in their case, they have an origin, master here, and then pull requests. And you shouldn't have any pull requests right now because it's a new repository. Cool. So we'll give you a 5-minute break to explore everything and for people to catch up. Make sure to send your questions into the Slack, and I'll send the link again if anyone needs it. Yeah. Back to it. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to ask questions if they need to, but yeah, feel free to do that. Next, we're going to explore the interface together. So to do that, we're going to make a branch. So first, I want to make sure everyone is back. Okay, and we're going to run through these steps again, and Julio will show us at the end of this section. So first, you're going to want to make a branch by hitting the branch button at the top in the middle, and then enter the branch name however you want to call it. So I don't know, like dev or yeah, whatever. In the background, what is actually happening here is we're telling Git on the command line, git checkout -b as in a branch, and then you're giving it a name. So that's essentially what we're doing here. Cool. Julia's going to show us how to make a branch.
Cool, let's do it. Just going to grab the screen again. Cool. Can everyone see my GitKraken? Awesome. All right, so if you don't mind, I'm going to make this a little bigger so it's easier for you guys to see. Okay, looks like that's the max I can make it. Just also gonna run this error message from earlier. Okay, cool. So as you can see, we now have our initial commit, which is what happens when you create a repo on GitHub. But we would like to make some changes and we want to branch before we do that, as Allison mentioned earlier. The easiest way to do that is to move your mouse over here to the branch icon. It says branch up here, and when you mouse over it, it'll come up with a little text message saying branch. As you click on it, you'll see a text box has opened up next to your branch name from earlier. Just to show you where it is, this is the current branch we're on called main, and once you click the branch icon, it replaces that with a new name that you can type in. So we're going to call our branch test just because we are testing out GitHub today. So you write test and press enter, and GitKraken will do some things and create your branch. Now GitKraken is actually doing two things behind the scenes here. It's creating your branch and it's also checking it out. These are two Git terms, but essentially when you create a branch, you create a new place for work to be saved. And when you check it out, you're essentially moving into that new place to work. So if you made changes in this branch, for example, that weren't in this branch, and then switched back to the original branch, then, or checked out the original branch, then all the changes would be gone and you would only have the original work. I'll quickly show that to you now by making an edit to the README file. So, oh, sorry, should I be doing the edits to the README file, Allison, or are we doing, or is this all for now?
Hang on, I think we've got some slides for it. I'm gonna steal the screen back from you.
Sure.
Yeah, cool. All right, so we're back. Next, we're going to, as Julia said, we're going to edit that README. So we're going to actually personalize the text that's in there so that you can personalize the introduction that's on your GitHub profile. So you're going to go to the directory where you cloned your repo to. In other words, whatever folder that you downloaded this code to. So in the beginning, we were like git clone, cloning it. So I cloned mine to like the desktop. You might have cloned it somewhere else. Julia cloned it to, I think, his user directory. You're going to open the README file with a text editor or an IDE of your choice. It's fine if you don't know what an IDE is. So if you're on a Mac, I recommend TextEdit. It's like simplest. If you're on PC, you can use Notepad. If you know what VS Code is or other, IDEs, you can use one of those. But essentially, we're just going to make some changes to it. So our README is written in Markdown, which is, think it is a lightweight markup language with plain text formatting syntax. So essentially, it is text, right? If you have like 3 hashtag symbols like this, it's saying we want a header here, a header 3. If you have a hyphen, for example, it's telling the markup is saying that we want a bullet list. So this is what your README should look like. We're all going to take a second to customize this file, and you'll have more time in the future also to customize it. So it's not written in stone or anything. In our README here, you'll see there is an angle bracket, exclamation mark, and dash dash. So this is a comment. So essentially what's happening here is we're commenting out all of this text here. It doesn't actually show up on our file. So we're going to delete these. Everything in the red box that you see here is going to be deleted from your own README file so that your bullet list shows up. You can make some changes to it, add some emojis, whatever, add some links maybe. Then we're going to hit save once we're done. And as a stretch goal, if you have extra time, you can learn more about Markdown here, or you can Google it and stuff. So we're going to do another 5 minutes of editing this README after Julia shows you how to do that. And then I'm going to post very briefly in Slack, and you can react if you can, whether or not you want the workshop sped up or slow down. Yeah, so Julia will share a screen on making changes to the README.
Cool, let's do it. So the first thing we need to do is actually find the README. Now you probably know where you save this folder, but just in case you forgot like I did, we can just right click on the README file on the right and click on open in or show in folder. This button right here. So in the right bar, right click on the README and click show in folder. This will open up a folder with the README file, as you can see here. And then we're going to just right click it, click open with, and click on Notepad. If you're using a Mac, it would be right click, open with, and text edit. The reason we're not just double clicking it is sometimes this file might be opened in some weird other program, and we don't want that right now. We just want to open it in Notepad or text edit. Cool. So now we have our README file. Let me make this a little more legible. And so the only thing we'll be doing for now is we're going to delete the comments up here. So in Markdown, anything that is started with that starts with these characters right here, it means the start of a comment. So I'm just gonna quickly delete them. And I'm also gonna delete the end of the comment, which are these 3 characters here. After that, I'm going to save the file and close Notepad. You might have noticed that after I saved the file, a new change popped up right here. This little pencil icon means that something has changed in your repository. So let's click on it and have a look. Or actually, Allison, do we click on it and have a look? Or is that next?
Yeah, we're gonna make changes to our README file.
Okay,
So
cool.
we've already done that, right?
Yep.
Okay, so let's hit pause on that. We'll give everyone 5 minutes to make your changes. Yeah, and I will share, I will steal this screen back from you. Good work, everyone. Maybe not 5 minutes, maybe more like 3, but yeah, go ahead and make your changes. All right, so that's been a couple of minutes, and don't worry, you'll still be able to make changes later on. At this moment, make sure you hit save on whatever platform or whatever ID, whatever editor you're using, hit save. And then we're going to add this to our GitHub. So I'm gonna leave this screen now, leave this slide. Our next steps are to stage and commit these changes. So that's a new term. Staging is when you tell Git which files you want to actually commit or interact with, and it allows you to break down your commit sizes. I won't go into too much detail on why you should break down your commit sizes. If your commit's really big, as in you're making a lot of changes and you're pushing it all at once, if someone is coming in to review your changes and like to make sure you're doing a good job, it's going to be like a very tedious task for them. So that's why we want to kind of break down the size of our commits. But essentially today we're not making that many changes, so we're going to stage everything. So staging, how you would do that in GitKraken is go back to GitKraken, and Julia will show us again later. You'll see this button that says view change because you've made one file change in the directory that you're working in the folder that you're working in. You've made one change. And then you'll see all the changes you've made. So at first glance, you'll see that readme.md, so the readme file, which is a markdown file, md, is listed under the unstaged file. So that means you have your changes locally on your own computer, but you haven't added them to a commit yet. So that snapshot of code that you want to be sharing with other people. So what we're going to do is we're going to stage that. So hit stage all changes, or Julia will also show you a different version of how to do that. You can just stage that one file instead as well. But in our case, we only have one file. So we're going to stage all these changes. That means this README file will move down to staged changes. And then you're going to give it commit message. So commit message is saying, like, this is what I want to name my commit to be. There are many ways to write your commit messages, but I think the right way in industry is to write it with a verb. So like add this, or add this feature to here, or fix this bug that was doing that. I don't know. Then we're going to make that commit. So in the background, what's actually happening is when we're staging something, we're calling git add. So one command would be git add dot. So dot means everything. So if you hit stage all changes, what's happening in the command line is git add dot. So everything that you've made changes to, you want to stage everything. Or you can alternatively call git add file name. So you give it a file name. So what that would do is you're just staging this one file that you've specified in this command. Once you have stuff that's been staged, you're going to call, you're going to actually write that message in GitKraken and then hit commit, right? So what that does in the background is git commit -m means -m is the M flag. It's saying this is what my message is going to be, and then you add in quotes and then your actual message. So yeah. And after that very, very simple step afterwards, remember earlier we were talking about pushing and pulling. So pushing is to upload your changes to GitHub, sending it to GitHub. And in our case, this is the first time we've ever pushed changes from a new branch that we just made. Okay, the first time we're uploading these changes on a completely new branch that we made locally. You might see this notification and it says, what remote branch should blah, blah, blah push to and pull from? Just use the default and hit submit. And Julia will show us all of that. So just a quick recap, we're going to stage all our changes. We're going to commit that with a message, and we're going to push it. Go ahead.
All right, hello again. Back to me. Cool, so I've left you guys off here where we've made our changes to our README, and now we would like to commit them. So if you look to the right here, you will see that we have two different windows. We have the unstaged changes area and the staged changes area. Unstaged changes are changes that we don't want to commit, and staged changes are changes that we do want to commit. So in this case, I'm just going to click on the README file. As you can see, there are a lot of options for what you can stage and what you don't need to stage. But for now, I'm going to be staging the entire README. So I'm going to go over here to the unstaged changes section, and I'm going to click on stage file next to readme.md. As you can see, this moves it over into the staged files section right here. That means that we're ready to commit this file. So to commit, first we will have to create a commit message. This essentially tells people, what have I done in this commit? What changes have been made, so that when they're looking through a list of commit messages, they can quickly find out where a certain change has been made. In this case, I'm going to say delete comments from README, because I've deleted the comment characters from the README. You can put whatever you want here. This is really up to you to decide how you want to describe your commit message, but this is how I'll be doing it. You can add a description if you want. Most people actually don't use descriptions in commit messages, so I'll be leaving it blank, but again, it's completely up to preference, whatever you feel like. Now I'm going to click on the big green button that says commit changes to one file. And my changes have been committed. As you can see, here is my new commit. So when you're looking at this page on GitKraken, you're actually looking at a list of commits. And the message for the commit is what shows up right here. So as you can see, I called this commit delete comments from README, and that's what it's called here. What you might also notice is that now our test branch isn't on the same commit as our main branch anymore. That's because we've made changes to the test branch, but those changes haven't been added to the main branch yet. That's fine. We'll be talking about how to do that later. But for now, we want to make sure that our new changes are online so that Maybe we can have our collaborators look at them and tell us what they think, or they're just backed up so that if our computer explodes, we still have them, which is always useful. So in order to do that, we're going to go up to this button here called push, and we're going to click on the push button. Now, if this is the first time that you're pushing this branch, it'll ask you, which branch would you like test to push and pull from? Now, there isn't actually one set up on GitHub yet, but by default, GitKraken will call the branch on GitHub with the exact same thing as the branch on local, and you should try to do this at all times. It's a very good practice to do it. So don't actually change anything here. Don't click on, or don't type anything in, and just click on the screen submit button to the left, to the right. Boop. If after giving a little bit, you'll see a message here, push successfully. And now that we can see that this little icon, which is my profile picture for GitHub, is showing up next to our branch because our branch is on the origin, which is GitHub in this case, and it's on local, which is our computer. I'm going to be handing it back to Allison now.
Cool. So I'm gonna hop on here. So what we did there, we made our commit and we pushed it. Cool. So what actually happens when you're committing and pushing? So if generally, if you have pushed this branch before, and it's already existing on your remote repository, you can just like the command would just be git push. But in our case, remember we had that extra line show up, like what would you like to push to? So what's actually happening there is we're going git push, and then we have a flag set upstream, origin, and then whatever branch name, because it's new. It's not actually existing in our remote repository yet. Cool. So this doesn't actually mean that our newly updated profile, so the changes that you made to your README, actually shows up on GitHub yet, in the sense that like your profile doesn't show up yet. GitHub shows the profile that's specified on the main branch. So as you saw Julio show you earlier, your test branch or whatever you've developed on is actually one commit ahead of whatever main branch is. So what I'm trying to get at is we're going to be merging our changes. So merging as in you're going to be combining whatever work that you've done and you're going to put it back with your main branch. Okay. So the steps for that is, this is really great. I love this part. All you really need to do is select your branch name, and you're going to click and drag it to main or master branch. Sorry, that's a typo there. It would be main or master branch. Depending on your preferences, it would be named differently. And then you would merge whatever your branch name is called into master or main branch. Okay, that's the menu setting you want to be selecting. And then you'll be able to see our commit tree. So at the very, very bottom, you see that there is a main that is with your GitHub profile picture. That is the remote version right now. You'll also see the main at the top with the little laptop or computer, and that is the local version that you have. We want our version of main to be actually on the remote version, so we're going to push that as well. It's a lot of information, really, really fast, but this is the same process as before. After we've merged everything, we have a new merged version of main, so you're going to hit the push button. And once these changes are pushed, you'll be able to see them on GitHub in your profile, okay? And so Julia will share a screen. Just a recap of what's happening here. We're going to merge and then push that merge. Okay.
All right, let's get going. All right, so last I left off, we were right here with our two branches, our test branch and our main branch. Like Allison said, we're going to want our test branch changes to apply to our main branch as well. So as she pointed out, there's two different ways to do this. The first way is to right click onto the main branch and select merge test or whatever you call this branch into main. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to just grab test and drag it over to the main branch like this. Once it's dragged over, I'm just going to let it go. And I'm going to select merge test into main. This will cause a merge commit, as you can see here. and our main branch will now, at least locally, have our new changes. Now I'm going to double click on the main branch in order to check it out. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, checking it out means that that's the branch you're currently working on. So to check it out, I'm just going to double click it. And now we are checked out our local main branch. If we'd like our main branch to also reflect what it is now on GitHub, we would have to push that branch. So the easiest way to do that is you just go up here like we did with the test branch earlier and click on push. After a little while and some pushing work done by GitHub, we'll see that our main or by GitKraken, we'll see that our main branch is now on GitHub and on our local computer. If we go over to GitHub now, we can, by refreshing the page, we can see that our changes are now reflected on the main repo. And because this is a special repo that adds these changes onto your profile, if we check out our profile, we can see that now this cute little README is displayed right next to our profile picture and our information. Allison, back to you.
Yeah, cool. I'm going to share my screen again. All right, so you've kind of already seen this already, but now we're done, basically. Very, very basic steps to using Git. But if you go to your GitHub profile and refresh the page, you should be able to see the new README that you've created, your new bio. And if you can't see that, message us on Slack in the channel, and we're going to make sure we get to you and try to figure that out. But that is what we wanted to build today, and we've built it. Some more steps, this is, you've only really worked with your own work today, and we want to be able to equip you with skills so you can work with other people as well. So ideally, you wouldn't be the only person working in a repo. To refresh your GitKraken view, you're going to hit the button beside pull and select fetch all. So this actually just tells you, this just kind of like refreshes and loads what possible other changes have been made in the remote repository that hasn't actually been pulled down to your local repository yet. So I'll say that again. You're kind of, when you hit fetch all, you're fetching the current state of the repository, including the remote work that you haven't pulled yet. Okay. And then to actually update your local branches with other people's committed and pushed changes, you're going to switch to the branch that you want to. So you can switch to main, you can switch to stuff here or test or whatever. You can do that in GitKraken by double clicking the branch's name, which is really great. And you'll hit the pull button to pull changes. So in the background, it's calling git pull. Yeah, so I don't think we'll be able to show that today because everyone's repositories, ideally you would have worked on it yourself. But for other repositories, if you're going to hackathon, if you're working in industry, this is, like the general way you would download someone else's changes. Hang on. So we won't switch to Julio's screen because he's already shown us what the repository looks like and what our bio looks like now. Next, we'll talk about like on a larger scale, what you can expect. So,
oh, actually, Allison, I was going to quickly just show off pulling and fetching, just so that.
Oh yeah, okay, clear. Cool. We'll do that on a different repository, right?
No, okay. So you.
Okay, go ahead.
You guys won't be able to see these changes because I've just done it on my own repository, but I made a change somewhere else that isn't on my computer, and now I'm going to try to fetch these changes. So I'm just going to go up to here and click on the fetch all button. That's by clicking on the arrow next to pull. So arrow next to pull, fetch all. Oh.
No, it's already there.
It's been, oops, my bad. It looks like it was already fetched. GitKraken actually will fetch your latest changes every few minutes or so. So most of the time you won't need to fetch. But if you notice that you should be seeing changes there and they're not there, then you can quickly fetch in order to get those changes updated. As you can see, my main branch here is no longer up to date with the main branch on origin because the main branch on origin has been updated. In order to get the latest changes onto your local computer, we're just going to move over to the pull button over here and click it. As you can see, now our changes are synced up to origin. We've pulled the latest information from GitHub and it's now on our computer. All right, Allison, I'll let you talk about the bigger picture now.
Nice. Oh, wrong one. Hang on, I've got two screens. Okay, cool. So on a larger scale, I want to say, like, today, looking at our commit tree, like, it doesn't look that great. Like, it doesn't look that impressive that we have 3 commits and 1 branch and 1 merge. So I'll kind of demonstrate what, on a bigger scale, your GitKraken could look like. So, for example, see if I can show this. So at nwPlus, we work a lot in open source. All of our websites are open source. They're public repos that anyone can look at. So here's an example of one. This is coming soon. It's the live site. And you'll see here. So there are a bunch of like different branches here. Here's Ian's work, and here is more Ian's work. Here's Jackie's work. A bunch of different people have worked on this repository. Now, if you are working purely in command line, it's very, very hard to visualize this in your head, what it could possibly look like as a tree. But here you're very clearly able to see, okay, well, Jackie's made a branch here and merged it in. And then Ian's made a branch here, and then another branch here, and then merged it in, stuff like that. So then you'll be able to see, like, on a wider scale, you know, these are branches that I've made. This is my current copy of the master branch. It's actually been updated quite a bit since then. So this will really help you in terms of, for example, like your group projects, your hackathon projects, like schoolwork as well. This is really bad practice, us both committing on the same branch, but this is stuff you'll be able to work on, and you'll be able to see your work, you know, like on a larger scale like this. I have more to talk about. So that's what it would look like on a larger scale. Not a huge scale, it's just a small group project or a small open source project, but industries use this as well. Some other stretch goals for everyone today. I know we are ending quite early today, so we'll stick around for if anyone has questions. But some other stretch goals in the future. Git is a huge, huge system. There are a ton of commands and features that we didn't have time to kind of dive into today. So here's some more skills that you can pick up as well, so you'll have a better working knowledge of Git. We talked about this earlier, but some pull requests and code reviews, and these are really, really important if you are going to be working on a team, doing, you know, like working on a product together. We have some slides actually in the slide deck about pull requests and code reviews, but we've hidden them. And so if you want to go see them, you'll have to open up the Google Docs link. We didn't talk about them today. There's also more, so such as initializing Git in a local directory. So what that means is you have your own folder, and you haven't actually made it into a Git repo yet. You would use the command git init to make it into a repo, and then it would have version control built in. Git status, for example, Git history, so calling Git logs, and these are already built into GitKraken, where if you wanted to see the status of your current work, as in what have you staged and what have you not staged and stuff like that, you're able to see that in GitKraken, but here is how you would learn it in command line. Git log, so earlier when we were seeing that big tree of all of the branches and stuff, you are also able to see that in command line, just in a text form, you just by typing git log. There are more features such as rebasing and fast forwarding that you might have heard of, resetting or discarding of changes. I do this all the time when I break my own code and you have to start clean, so git reset. And then also resolving merge conflicts. So this is actually, it was the most challenging thing for myself when I was, you know, learning Git, to try to figure out what merge conflicts are and how to resolve those. GitKraken has a really great tool for that. GitHub also has a really great tool for that when you're making a pull request. So definitely a lot of knowledge out there for you to learn if you're interested. A great resource that I've found is this link. So it's learngitbranching.js.org. It is a small game for you to play, and it'll help you visualize what branches look like and how fast forwarding works and stuff like that. Yeah. So with that being said, and before we let you go, we want to talk about the rest of the nwPlus workshop series. We were really happy that you were able to join us today, and we've got a bunch of other ones coming up as well. So the Git workshop was very, very beginner, but we've got some that are beginner or intermediate as well, if that's something you're interested in. So we've got web development for dummies. Not that you're a dummy, but it's for dummies. In November, it is going to be learning HTML and CSS, just the basics, and then you'll be able to hit the ground running from there with like cool frameworks and stuff. We'll have data viz for people in a hurry, so you'll be able to try Jupyter Notebook and R. So for data visualization, it's really great for bioinformatics, and if you're taking some AI courses, you'll also be able to use Jupyter Notebook and stuff. It's very, very cool. Both are beginner. And then we have an intermediate APIs 101 workshop that you'll be working with Express and MongoDB. And we also have an Amazon Web Services one, which might be in November, might be in December, might be in term 1. We're not sure yet, but you'll be able to configure your own Minecraft server. And yeah, so that's our currently available workshop series, upcoming events that we know of right now. Not all of them are posted yet, so you're getting a first view of them. If you're interested and if you have questions, just drop a line in our Slack workspace. Yeah, and that is everything. But before we all go, Anne is going to post a feedback form link. We'd love to know how you felt about the workshop today, and we'd love to improve for the future. So if you have any feedback for us, please drop a line in the form that she's sending out right now. Very, very quick, I promise. And overall, thank you all for coming. Reach us at by email or on our social media, or ask us anything in Slack. And we're really, really happy that you were able to join us today.